Good morning, everyone. It feels like it's been a little while since I've seen you, and that we've been here in my kitchen for Jay's Recipe for Success. Welcome to today's show. And as you know, this show is all about highlighting entrepreneurs, leaders who talk about the ingredients to their success. As JA continues to mentor and inspire and motivate young people. We love that they have the opportunity to hear from so many great leaders in our community. Today's leader is someone that I've just recently met, but in the world of education as well. Mandee Heller Adler is the founder and managing partner of International College Counselors, which is one of the world's largest education counseling companies. Good morning and welcome, Mandy.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to be here.
How are you?
I'm well. No complaints. Yeah.
I'm glad. I love when there's no complaints. I always say nobody wants to hear it anyway, right?
That's right. No, all good. It's a good morning. It's a Florida morning. What do we have to complain about?
So where are you? Are you at home? Are you in an office?
I'm in my home office. Yes. Okay. I have an office actually that I could walk to. I live right near one of my offices. But right now I'm in my home office because it's the morning and I figured I would do this from here. So
awesome. So tell us a little bit for our audience, share a little bit about what you do in particular, and then what International College Counselors is about.
Sure. So I run International College Counselors. So that's basically what I do. But International College Counselors is, we're a global company. We have 11 offices around the US. We work with kids in 13 countries. And basically we help students with their application process to get into college and graduate school. That process actually begins in 9th grade. So we do more than just college, but we feel that by maximizing a child's high school experience, we're best able to help them eventually get into college and then graduate school. So we work with kids of all ages, but our ultimate goal is college and graduate school.
Interesting. So how did you start this? Like, what made you want to do this?
Yeah, so that's a great story. So I grew up in Miami Beach. I went to Miami Beach Senior High, go High Tides. And I went from there and I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I went to the Wharton School. And the thing that actually bugged me when I got to the Wharton School was that there weren't very many public school kids there. And quite frankly, I grew up in South Florida and I thought I was really smart. And I looked around at all these private school kids and I was like, I don't really get it. Like, my friends are so much smarter than you are. And why are all these private school kids here? And why are there no public school kids here? And I also knew from my high school, we had about 600 kids in our class. 2 got into Ivy League schools. Me and actually one of my best friends got into Penn, and no one else got into Ivy League schools. And that's not necessarily to say that that's the end all be all of the world, but down the block, some of the more prestigious private schools had 10 out of 100 get into Penn. And I was like, this is just not, there's something I'm missing. So I actually started writing a book while at Penn, and it was called From Public School to the Ivy League, How to Get into a Top School Without Top Dollar Resources, and it's still on Amazon. And I will tell you the thesis. So after all this research and all this work while I was an undergrad was basically the private school kids had college counseling and we didn't have, we had someone who was lovely and she was great and I don't mean to put her down, but she had 700 kids in 4 classes and a lot of the kids were going to the military and some were in foster care. And the last thing she was worried about was the honor student who was trying to go to Harvard, So fine. I actually graduated from Penn. I had a fellowship to study in Europe. And then I went to work at Goldman Sachs and I went to Harvard Business School and I started an internet company and I sold an internet company. And then I actually married my college boyfriend and we decided to move back to South Florida. And I moved back and I was like, okay, quite frankly, I have money and I have time, right? So what do I really want to do, right? So I did, for me, working at Goldman Sachs was what I thought I was supposed to do and I didn't really enjoy it that much. I had started an internet company, which I thought was pretty cool and it gave me some financial independence. But what really resonated with me now that I had money and time, and I realized that I had all these amazing opportunities before I was, 30, 31, simply because of my education, right? And so I really believe in education. So I always say to families, if you do not believe in education, you do not want to come to me. Like, I am not the person who will say college doesn't matter, and it doesn't have to be college, but that education doesn't matter. If you want to, brush off college or education in general, I'm not the person. So I highly believe in education. So I started International College Counselors out of this lovely office. And over time we've grown. So it grew from me to, now we have about 13 counselors, and we work with students all over, and we've evolved with the changing times, and it's fun. And I love it because I believe in what I do and I feel good about what I do. And to me, that's very important, is having a meaningful career. And I feel like I really have that.
Yeah. I caught what you said, and I echo there. When you said, I thought I was supposed to do that, right? So often our students think they know exactly what they want, or their parents think they know exactly what they want for them. And it turns out that that's not really, isn't the job of their dreams or what they're passionate about. And so finding your passion was obviously important. I think in this world that we're living in today, of diversity and inclusion and equality, how do we make sure, and I think this is so important, I know even for us at Junior Achievement, how do we make sure that every student has the ability, right, to attend those schools? How do we make sure, because look, we may have a few more counselors than you did, at your school, maybe not with the way the budgets are these days, but I think you're right. They're just not getting that kind of counseling. And so the families who are more affluent have the resources, right, to have a company like yours work with them. How do we make sure every student gets this, Mandy?
So I think as a community, we have to advocate for education. I'm not exactly sure why that's always the first area that gets cut, right? I think it's a shame how little attention kids get and education gets. You're right. Every child should have access to good education and to good counselors. And it's just like a lawyer, right? Or an accountant. I mean, technically you don't need a lawyer or an accountant, but are you in a better situation if you are? Of course. Are there things that I know that the average parent won't know? Of course. I mean, can a kid learn from my book, or can a kid learn from the internet? Of course. Just like you can learn how to win a lawsuit on the internet or from a book. But is it better to have an expert? Of course. So I would say as a community, we really need to advocate for education. I'm personally very involved in gifted education. I worked with the Broward County School Board to get the new gifted high school started in Broward County. A lot of times people don't think about gifted as special education, and they always say, oh, the smart kids, they're fine. But it goes back to your point. Every child deserves an education for their level. And I believe very strongly in that. So whether your child has major learning differences or whatever, they deserve the best education. And if your child is highly gifted, they deserve the best education. And I think we as adults need to do what we can to fund and provide resources to our children in this community.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think that's, writing in services like yours into some of the grants for the nonprofits, right, that they're doing, or some of the programs, is probably a one way that we could, pull down some funding, as you said, to make sure that some of these students who wouldn't have the opportunity get this kind of counseling and this kind of guidance. So important. And I think, it's interesting because even if you look at that from anything else, as you said, legal, accounting, we all do better if we have the resources, right? Sure. The professional resources that we need. And so share with me a little, how many employees do you all have?
So we're about 21 employees right now.
21. And so for the majority, are most of those counselors working with the students?
Correct. Most of those are counselors working with the students. That's what we do. That's what we love. We hire educators who love kids, who want to help kids, who want to learn about colleges. That's our bread and butter. And then we have some, I wouldn't say just administrative people do administrative and back-end support and handle the finances and, business
development.
Yeah, we need all that stuff. Exactly.
Business development, very important, and marketing, all that. And
Although
so,
actually, I'll say with us, we don't do much marketing. We do very little business development and very little marketing. Our business is I would say it's a parent sale. I say a mother sale, but now there are dads involved. And one happy mom, that's it. Your whole business is from one happy mom. And that's really how we do it. We just make our parents and our kids happy, and then our business grows. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what we call word of mouth marketing, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so your employees, are they global or are they all based here?
So they're global. We have a few outside the US who refer us business. They're not full-time employees, but our full-time employees are all within the US. So we have offices in South Florida, Connecticut, New York, and North Carolina. And we're hopefully hiring someone in Ohio this week. So that'll be nice.
Good. So the model, was it always a virtual model?
No,
I'm curious, or was it in person?
So I actually firmly believed in offices, right? And my joke was that my child in Bahrain didn't care that I was in Fort Lauderdale, but my child in Miami didn't want to come to Fort Lauderdale. So we actually have all these offices and we pay for offices. It is now virtual, and a lot of my families don't care, and it's great for them. And I think kids are so busy now, they're like, screw it, I don't want to come in. So I'm not 100% sure what will happen after the pandemic. But right now we're virtual. But right now we're still paying for our offices, so we don't mind if someone wants to come in. I mean, that's fine, as long as we have masks and we keep it socially distanced. Right. But historically the business model has been offices, and it's also been a way for us to show that we're professional. We're not just, some person on the corner who's like, oh, I can do college counseling, and, you can come to my kitchen, and it just showed the kids like, this is serious. We value this. This is education. This matters. And you're going to come to an office just like your parents would come for a lawyer or an accountant, right, or something else. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see where we land, right, in all of this. You have people making predictions. We're going to stay all virtual, and, oh no, we're going to go back to normal. And, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of balance or hybrid in there somewhere. But so one of our viewers asked, given that private school tuition can now top $60,000 a year, do you still think that is worth the investment?
So I assume they mean private. I don't know any private schools that top.
I would imagine they mean a university, a college, $60,000 a year.
So it still wouldn't be 60,000. It might be like 40, but still, I think that is a very valid point, right? College is way too expensive. Okay, private college is way too expensive, and it has really become a game for the very wealthy and the very poor, right? So if you really don't have money, apply to all the colleges because they have lots of financial aid, right? So if you really don't have money, it's the middle class that's sort of in trouble with the private schools. However, going back to this concept of believing in education, the public schools in Florida are quite reasonably priced. I mean, I'm not saying like there's not a cost, but you could really go to our community colleges, or you really could go to our public college, not take out a lot of debt, and graduate and do whatever you want to do, right? We have graduates from our public colleges who do extremely well. So part of the education when I work with nonprofit organizations is to explain to kids, like, you don't need to go to these for-profit schools. You don't need to take out $200 and $1,000 in debt. When parents ask me, is it worth it? I say, how much does it hurt? I mean, is it $200,000 in debt? Then probably not, right? Is it $5,000 in debt? I would pay, but it depends what you value, right? And then it's also, well, what does your child want to do in the future? So it's a conversation, but at the end of the day, nobody should be taking out, what I say, she said $60,000, 60,000 times 4, $240,000 to go to college. That's insane. So there is something wrong with the pricing system. And one thing I'll point out, actually, right before this, we had a new blog that came out today. And our blog was a new trend that we see, which is American students wanting to go abroad. And we've never had that before. So I've been doing this for 16 years and was always like a one-off child who wanted to go to McGill. Now more and more students are like, just like this person, college is too freaking expensive. I'll go to England and 1/8 the price in 3 years and I'm done.
Interesting. In this world of virtual and technology and all of that, it's opening up the whole world to our kids in a sense.
So it is, right? It's fascinating, and what the online education means, and sort of access to education versus community. And in the US, we believe at least higher education has a lot to do with the community and what you actually get by perhaps living on campus and getting to know the other kids, which is something I think you can't get through virtual, right?
I agree.
But if you want to learn a trade, which there's nothing wrong with that, or you want to just learn a certificate, or you don't have a lot of money, so I would say it's a second best choice, but you're right, it's still a great option for many families. So yeah, it opens up a ton of doors for people.
Ton of world. So I wonder, when we're hiring, right, for our teams, we look for certain things, right? We look for certain skills, certain attributes, maybe certain technical skills as well. But I think a lot of us these days are looking more at the soft employability skills, that are transferable, right, amongst all different trades and careers. What do you look for? Right, when a family comes to you, or a student or a parent comes to you, what do you look for? Because I know, we were talking about this yesterday, that sometimes whether it's a donor or a volunteer or a teacher, it's just not the right match, right? Our organization may not be for them, or
so
they may not.
When I hire, or when I work with clients?
No, when you're working with families. I'm going to get to hiring next, but I'm curious. Is there something you look for in particular in families? Because I'm sure that has a little bit of challenges sometimes, right?
No, but that's actually a great point. So I believe one of the secrets to our success, one of the recipes to our success is actually having so many different counselors and then matching the student with the right counselor, right? So number one, and I have a pretty fancy education, the humility to know that I don't care how smart you are, you don't know everything, right? And once you can accept that, nobody knows everything. So I think there's actually a lot of power in saying, I don't know. So the first thing we do is we match the student with the right counselor, because I've never had like a bad family, I guess if someone's hard, like evil, then we won't work with them. But usually it might be like, my child, really loves music. Like he's not good in school. He really loves music. Mandy, what do I do? Quite frankly, I don't, and this is a good story leading to it. I don't know music. I'm tone deaf. I can't listen to a kid's recording and tell you if it's any good. And that's part of my job, is to actually know whether or not what I'm being given is, good, or where it falls into the world of higher education. I cannot listen to a musical piece and tell you if it all sounds good to me. Like, as long as a kid's doing it, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. But for college purposes, like, I need to be able to say, that's a Juilliard piece, or that's a Indiana piece, or I don't know. So I have someone on staff who I can match with the child, right? And the same thing with the arts. Like, I had a student send me some pictures the other day to see if they should include, I don't know. I sent it to my art person, and the art person was like, absolutely not. And I was like, okay, good to know, but on the flip side, there was a student who was feeling very bad about herself, and she had liked art, but she thought what she did wasn't good enough. And he looked at it and he was like, this is something, we can make something within it. She just got into all these amazing art schools. She feels so good about herself, so going back to your point, I think recognizing you don't know everything, recognizing that not everybody's going to love you, and that your skill set doesn't necessarily transfer to every person. And I think my company has been pretty good about matching, whether it's learning differences, or, kids with autism or ADHD, or want Ivy League schools, or we're very good at matching those kids.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, finding that right match, right? Whether it's the student with the school, whether it's the employer with the employee. So now let's transfer over to that where you thought I was going first, which is when you're hiring as a CEO, what are you looking for in your team? Like, I heard you just talking about how you definitely, it sounds like you have a diverse team, right, that bring different knowledge and different skill sets to the table. But what is it that you look for in particular? Is it those skills, or is it attitude? What do you look for?
So we have a strong company value going back to commitment to education. So the first thing we look for is people who value education the way we do, that at the end of the day, that they feel that this is a calling, that this is important, that where the child goes to college matters. I always say to my families, like, I will give you the same answer that I would give my own child. And you can tell when someone really cares about kids. I mean, you work with children, there's just something where they really care, because, and I'll say this out to the kids, you guys suck sometimes, like absolutely, teenagers, and you see those people who like forgot about when they were teenagers and forgot about like how many dumb things they do. So it's sort of embracing the stupid and just kind of bringing them forward. I would say, you mentioned something before about the virtual. One of the sad things about going virtual is in person, I feel like you can establish like a real mentorship relationship. You can really bond with the kid. So it's someone who wants that. In addition to that, we need strong writing skills because the essays are extremely important. And then we need what I call figure it out skills, because with 3,200 colleges, once again, nobody can know everything. But usually you can figure it out if you are resourceful. So I always say figure it out skills, writing skills, extremely important, right? Because if your job is to read essays, it better be good. And then and just loving kids, I think is super important.
So how do you, getting that little echo there, how do you, you talk about education and someone has to value education. And to me, education, whether it's formal education, right, continuing education, whatever that is, I come from a family of educators. My dad was a dean and a senior vice president of a college, and my mom was a superintendent of schools. So I have listened to this, for years. And on one hand, education has not changed that much. On the other hand, it needs to change, right? And in the world that we're living in today, I think there are some changes we need, and I'm not sure it's moving fast enough. But, I wonder sometimes, how do you, as it is changing, how do you keep up with what's happening, what's changing? How do you continue to grow and learn so that you can make sure that your company, right, your clients benefit from your knowledge?
So I think that's a great question. And I think we exemplified that with STARS this year with the pandemic, right? Everything went from offline to online. All the kids' traditional activities suddenly got ended. All the ways they traditionally learned. So 20% of a child's year is the summer, right? So if the child does nothing all summer, that's really wasted time. So we had to pivot pretty quickly as far as, everything, here's what you were going to do, and now here's what you're going to do. So I would say as a company, it comes down to commitment, staying ahead of trends, just like we talked about, kids going abroad. So this is a new trend for us. So we hired someone on our staff who knows international admissions, right? Once again, it's not, oh, I can just do this, here's a trend, but it's hiring the right people who know how to do it. And then putting forth the resources. So we have a whole database. We had it last summer, and we might need to use it this summer, of things you can do online over the summer, right? Do I think that's going to benefit my students? Absolutely, right? Because there was actually even a question on the application, was basically, how did COVID impact you and what did you do about it? Not in those words. But my students are going to be able to say, although my lab got canceled, I moved online and I did data science and I did, and I did all this stuff. Or although I could no longer play my music, I started a program that tutored other kids in music. So, it showcases, I think, it not only showcases the colleges that this is a serious student, but it also teaches the child, I think, what were really important lessons from this pandemic, which I say is resilience and pivoting, right? So that life, sometimes you have to pivot and your life doesn't go the way you want it to. And then you're just resilient that you can kind of suck it up and be like, I say to my kids, I'm like, I get that online music is not the same, or I get that online drama is not the same, but this is what we got. So smile and just deal,
Go with the flow.
Well, just, we don't have an option here. So your option is to sit at home and cry about it, or to choose from one of these, 3 options. And would I like to have 100 options, child? Yes, but I got 3, and 3 is more than nothing. So let's start with these 3.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that applies to adults right now too. So, you talked about a lot of ingredients. You talked about believing in what you do, right? Having a passion for that. You talked about your story and reinventing, right? You reinvented yourself and your career. The right match, finding the right match, whether it's with the students, the colleges, or employees to employer. I love this one, the power of I don't know. That's a great one. And that's not just for the students or the parents or you, employees, all of us, right? We need to be able to say when we don't know. I love the diversity that your team, that you talked about in your team. So making sure that you have all of the right skills and knowledge at the table. Love this one. And as you get older, you realize this one's so true. Not everyone's going to love you. But as you get older, it's okay that everybody doesn't love you. When you're young, it's life altering that someone doesn't like me, valuing learning, as you said, even with yourself and continuing to grow. I love this one too. Embrace the stupid. I've never heard that one, but I love it. And the skill sets, the figure it out skills that we all need to have, pivoting, resilience, commitment, and staying ahead of the trends. All great ingredients, obviously, that have led to your success. I always ask everyone, and I'm sure there's so many more, but those are just the ones that I've captured through our conversation that I think are so important for our kids and for our watchers, our viewers to see. What is Mandee Heller Adler's main ingredient to success?
So it's actually not something I mentioned. And my main ingredient is community. And what I mean by that is I started my business and my friends from Miami Beach Senior High School came out and supported me and remembered me. My first clients were from my community. My high school teacher made my book a required book in his class and invited me in to speak. Now I work with both my sisters, my brother-in-law, my mother. A lot of my clients are connected to me, and in return, I've built a community too, right? So I do a lot of volunteer work with children, and so I believe that I don't believe in networking. So a lot of people think you go to a fancy school in order to network. I firmly do not believe in networking. I believe in making friends and being authentic. And I feel that friendship builds community, love builds community, right? My family. And at the end of the day, when this pandemic started and we had 0 clients and no money and I was freaking out, my friends and my family were there. I had a community. So whether it's my immediate community or my extended community, I believe in building true, authentic relationships based on respect and trust, and that's my real ingredient to success. It's other people and my bonds with other people.
Yeah, I think I love it, and I almost went and asked you a question about it, about community and about boards and volunteering that you do, because I think. I totally agree with you. I mean, networking is fine, and sometimes it's fun, sometimes. But where I think, we really build, when you're really building friendships and relationships in this community, that's when things happen. That's when the magic happens, I think. And I think one of the things you always hear is, you give to get, but not necessarily that you're giving to get, but that it does come back. It's almost like karma. Talk about that for a minute, and your volunteering and your being involved. Because I love for our students to hear this, at how important this is, because I think so many of them are so focused on themselves, which, by the way, we probably all were as young people, although I volunteered from the time I was 16 and loved it. And I truly believe, and I'll share this for a second, I truly believe that it prepares us for life. I volunteered with kids with disabilities and years later had a son with Down syndrome. I truly, truly believe that, and it may not be that specific, but that when we are out there in a volunteer world versus the work world, we learn and we build just things in us, right? And learn things that we wouldn't learn through work. Talk a little bit about what that's done for you.
Gosh, there's so much I could talk about. But once again, I'll give an example. So I have my 3rd book coming out, and it's actually on what to do once you get to college. And I'm really excited about this book, and it was actually picked up by Wiley Publishing. So it's it's not just a self-published book, it's a real book. And And it was interesting. I reached out to all these people to get endorsements, right? And I did go to these fancy schools, so I do have friends doing some fancy things. And what was most fascinating was that the ones who were most successful, right? So I have the CEO of Google Ventures writing me a thing, or I have a U.S. congressman writing me an endorsement, and I have a very, very senior person at Facebook, right? I mean, I have like these crazy people, and they were all like, "Sure, Mandy, tell me what I need to do." And then like the people who weren't as high up, like who were just like, I don't know, maybe they were small business owners in South Florida or whatever. It was like a whole thing. It was like they didn't get the concept of this is 5 minutes of your time, help me out here. And I don't know if it'll come back. I mean, you're so much more senior than I am, but if they can do good, they wanted to do good, right? There's nothing in it for the guy from Google Ventures to put his name on my book. Clearly it was in my best interest. We were friends. We got out for drinks in business school, whatever. But he was doing it for me because maybe one day his kid will have, questions with college and I will help him. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that successful people tend to help others, not knowing where it's going to come back. I like to volunteer. I like lots of things. So my volunteer work is kind of a way that I stay involved in so many different things. And also it's a way that I can stay involved with my children and to stay involved in what's meaningful for them. So that's been great. But I also, going back to it, the word passion is a weird one for me. For me, it's meaning. So I find a lot of meaning in what I do. And as long as I find something meaningful, I can get behind it. So I try to find organizations and things that I feel are meaningful to me and that, matter as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. That's awesome. Love it. I always share with people that the relationships that I have in this community, and I've been in this community in nonprofit, whether as a volunteer or working in nonprofit as I reinvented myself, for probably, I don't know, Patrick is 28, so probably about 28, 29 years here in Florida. And the relationships that I have built, even some of our donors and supporters, they're friends, right? Whether they give to us or not, they've become friends where we help each other. And so I so believe in what you just shared. And I thank you so much. I feel like I made a new friend today. I really, really enjoyed learning more about you and the organization and what you do. And I hope that we can find a way to partner. Many of our high school students that we work with are from the low-income families and low-income schools. And it's for me, the meaning is making sure, my daughter was fortunate, right? Your children are fortunate to be able to have the resources to go do what they want to do. My meaning in life and my mission in life is to make sure that every child has that, whether it's a child with special needs, a child from lower income, any other challenge that they might be facing. They all need to have the chance to be successful and to thrive. And so thank you for all that you do. I hope that we have the chance to work together. I can't wait to read your books.
Oh, good. I wait for the next one to come out. Yes, I think that would be great.
We'll bring you back when the next one comes out so we can share it with everyone. We are going to share this. I hope that a lot of parents see this and reach out. And again, hopefully offline, we can find a way to help some of our students who don't have the resources. So Mandy, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to be with us.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
You too. And thanks everyone for watching. Thank you for all of you in the chat and put in your questions. Tracy, Brent, Olga, all of you who are in there and watched this morning. Appreciate your viewership and your support. Everyone have an amazing weekend. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.